Great. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so glad to have you. We've been trying to get together for some time now, and I love meeting people who have a similar story and love and have a passion for helping others like you have. And your background's very interesting, and I'm so curious to find out what led you to what you're doing today. So tell us a little bit about, I know that you have a business administration degree and you've traveled around the world. You've taught English around the world. You've done workshops, self-improvement workshops, a lot of different things. Wellness, you are do some kind of wellness, fitness instructor. So all of these things have led you to where you are today. So tell us a little bit where you're at today and why.
It has. So I think, like most people's stories, mine starts all the way back in childhood. And so as a child, I grew up with two very, very hardworking parents. And I always say they were victims of the American dream because they just worked so hard, like 15-hour days, usually 7 days a week. And so that led them to being very stressed, highly anxious, very explosive. And so that was the perception I had of myself. I viewed myself as this sad, angry, explosive little girl. And everything changed for me in eighth grade, which we all know eighth grade superlatives mean absolutely nothing really. But I was voted Miss Congeniality. And it was so shocking to me because the perception I had about who I was this explosive, depressed, angry girl. And yet I was voted Miss Congeniality. So I started analyzing my behaviors at such a young age, 14, 15, which I know you can relate to because you went through such a, like, I feel like such a dynamic childhood. And I started to see that I was this angry, sad, explosive girl when I was at home. And I was Miss Congeniality when I was at school. And so I started getting obsessed with the idea of changing our environment because our environment plays such a big role in how we show up in the world. So all throughout high school, I was obsessed with the idea of backpacking throughout the world. And in college, I wanted to study abroad. And I had absolutely no confidence in myself to do it. So it was something that was just a dream. It was something I was kind of just, thinking about and dreaming about all throughout the years. But in college, I had a few friends who were courageous enough to study abroad, and I used that opportunity to visit them. So it took me a long time to finally work up enough courage. But after college, I finally decided to do my first backpacking trip. I went away for 3 months and I was so unprepared. I brought like a leather backpack. It wasn't the right equipment by any means. And I thought I was going to just end up failing the whole thing because I did not bring enough money. I had this scarcity mindset. So after coming home from that trip, I was not sure if I'd ever be able to do it again. And then I realized, wait, I just did it. Like I did it. I survived. I can totally go back again. So I ended up going back for another month. And then a couple years later, I went away for an entire year through Southeast Asia, Africa, South and Central America. So I've done a lot of backpacking. And I like to say with every new city that I traveled to, it helped me to reframe a negative thought in my head because it was a decade's worth of processing and trying to reframe thoughts and really building up enough courage to do it.
I think that's fascinating. I mean, not only did you accomplish your dream, but you exceeded it. You didn't just go once, you went, all over the world and for a whole year even. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And but what you're telling me is it's what I'm hearing from you is that you had these two different parts of yourself and you were trying to understand why do I have these two parts of myself?
Mhm.
See me a certain way, but I don't believe certain things that will get me to where I think they see me or where I want to go. Is that
Absolutely.
okay?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is like part two of the story is I started to really wanted to dive into the brain and understand why my thoughts were my own thoughts. And what I've come to find after years of researching and studying that 85% of our global population is affected by low self-esteem. And that number blew my mind when I first learned it. 85%, that's 6.8 billion people across the world. And I was one of them.
Yes.
And so I really wanted to dig deep and to find out why, where is this coming from? And what I learned is that our environment plays such a big role. And so when we're children, we learn through something called observational learning, which means seeing and hearing. And
Mhm.
so when we watch our parents, our guardians, our role models, even our teachers, if they talk negatively, if they shame their bodies, or if they doubt their abilities to do anything, we absorb those limiting beliefs. And so as we grow older, we kind of turn into these anxious teenagers, and then eventually into adults who don't believe in themselves. So I really got obsessed with the idea of reframing the way we think and using our subconscious mind as a tool to do that.
It's a beautiful thing you're doing.
Thank
And
you.
people see that not all that they see, think, or believe is true, and that you can reframe it. You can see it differently, even if everything around you told you one thing. Our society tells us one thing, or your environment that you grew up told you something that
Mhm.
can't change it. I mean, that's that can transform, especially a teenager, especially a young adult. And I know you have a book out there that you focus on teenagers, right?
Yeah, so when I came back from traveling, I started teaching. And that's where I started teaching wellness classes and mindfulness classes, because the teacher at the school that I taught at is a very unique school. And I had the ability to do that, which I absolutely loved. And that's where I really found this whole coaching practice. It just blended with my personality so well. And all of these students that I was working with, all of them, I can't think of one student who did not struggle with their confidence. So it was just it's something that really needs to be implemented, I think, into the education system, so that way we're teaching people how to believe in themselves, and then they have that framework for the rest of their life.
Yes, isn't that a huge piece missing? It's like a
It really is.
it should be there even in elementary school. And how to navigate life, and that you do have tools that you can use, and otherwise it does become overwhelming. And teenagers are absolutely it's the hardest time of life, because they have so much pressure on them to think that they have to have it all figured out by the time they get out of high school to figure out what
Mhm.
life, career is going to be. I've worked with teenagers before too, and there's a lot of stress there. And your book will help them with these tools. So I want to dive into, you've talked about mindset a lot.
Mhm.
Mindset. What do you teach people about mindset, and how this can change your subconscious, even with, having these self doubts or self esteem issues that you don't even know where they came from? Some people do, other people don't. It could be societal, they just wake up and they just don't understand why they don't have enough self-esteem. I think you were a great example of that.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. Thank you, by the way. But it's really understanding the brain. And I don't think a lot of us are taught anything about the brain. We hear things over the years, and I feel like a lot of us have heard that to develop a new habit, it takes 3 weeks. I learned a couple years ago that that's a total myth. So it's just we've heard things over the years, but most of us weren't actually taught about the brain and how our own bodies work. And so the way I teach people is by understanding their levels of consciousness. And so our human brain has three different levels of consciousness, and there's the unconscious, the conscious, and the subconscious. The unconscious is information that you cannot access. The conscious part of your mind is your rationalization and logical thinking, and the subconscious is your involuntary actions. So that's your responses to specific times or environments or people. Our subconscious also houses our fears, our anxieties, our repetitive negative thoughts, and it learns through habituation. So when people understand that, they're like, oh, so it's about habits. And that's exactly right. So if you understand how to form new habits, then you can learn how to reframe the thoughts that are in your head. And we need to, because over 95% of our daily life is in the subconscious mind, which is so crazy. We spend 95% of every single day in the subconscious. And because of that, over 95% of our daily thoughts are the exact same things we thought about yesterday and the day before and the day before that. So we just repeat our thoughts over and over and over again. And that is wild. So if we can start thinking more positively with a growth mindset, and just even by tweaking our thoughts a little bit, we'll start to repeat, and forcing ourselves to repeat them, really, we will start to think more positively.
And doesn't have to be this big huge change in your life. You can just make these little slight changes to start to be more aware of
Yes.
your negative, maybe, or
Yes.
or limiting beliefs, or, what if, I mean, I know that, I mean, I understand that there's so many thoughts that go through our head that we're not even aware of.
Hmm.
We're not actually thinking, oh, every thought that we're not aware of every thought that's going through our brain. But if we slow everything down, like meditation and being more in present time, we're able to see some of these thoughts. And I've taught, and I'm sure you have too, to really, if you're still believing these thoughts that you want to change, ask yourself, are they really true? Is there any evidence that is
Hmm.
that's true still? Because who knows where it came from? And
Hmm.
but it does, especially if it's one that it does come back often. Like, I mean, what's an example of I can't travel by myself?
Yes,
Or for you, uh, it's like, well, where's the evidence? I've never done it.
exactly.
So it's like, just question yourself. So what are some of the tools to um, slow that brain down so that you can be aware of what's actually happening?
So similar to what you just said, and the example that I usually like to use with traveling is as a child, my parents were so busy. So I constantly heard language like, I can't do that, or I don't have enough time, or we don't have enough money. And so all these years later, 20 years later, when I wanted to travel, I kept telling myself, I can't travel because I can't do that. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. It was the exact same language that had been stuck in my brain for 20 years. I was repeating the thoughts over and over and over again. So the way that I started to really change that is just by using the word yet. And this is just a small tool that people can use. I mean, there's plenty of other ones, but what's just really triggered the process for me was changing my environment by starting to recognize that our environment plays a big role, but then actually reframing the language. So I haven't done that yet. I haven't gone to that new city yet. I haven't been alone in a new city yet. Like just using the word yet because it tricks our subconscious mind into believing we're gonna do that thing. We just haven't done it yet.
That's brilliant. That's
Yeah.
And it doesn't take that much. It's just a one
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
word. Yes.
Mhm.
So I've never heard that before, and I think that is so amazing. And that does completely change the meaning behind what you're saying.
Mhm.
And so
Absolutely.
sudden your subconscious starts to believe it, or what starts to believe it? Your mind, your subconscious, your spirit? What changes? Is there one day that you wake up when you've been saying the yet, and then all of a sudden you think, no, I can do it. I am
Well,
doing it.
the subconscious is different for everybody. So for some people, it might take 3 weeks to reframe their brain, like that 3 week myth. But for most people, it doesn't. There was actually a study done, I think, back in 2012 by a behavioral psychologist. Her name was Philippa Lally, and she did the study on 96 participants and just asked them to form a new healthy habit. And the study showed that it took participants anywhere from 18 days to 254 days to form a new habit. So for some people, it might take 3 weeks. For others, it could take almost a year. And so we just have to tell ourselves yet, over and over again. And your subconscious mind takes it as a suggestion. It's like, okay, so this is a suggestion, this is information. We might do this thing, but then eventually you're going to believe you do it. And the more you talk about it, the more you think about it, the more you're envisioning yourself being in that scenario, and then you're actually doing it.
Fabulous. That's so good. And any counteractive, thought or belief, the more it's kind of like affirmations, that I've taught for years and years and years. Is the power of those is that you are reprogramming, reframing
Mhm.
just all those different reasons, whether it's you overheard your parents saying a certain thing over and over and over again, that every time you say I want to travel, or I am a great traveler, or whatever it is, anything that you've been taught that will come up to oppose that will start to come up. But the more that you say it, all of a sudden it starts to get less and less and less, until one day you don't have that counter thought that start to show, that are showing up to tell you that you can't. All of a sudden one day they're just not there. That's kind of
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, no, that is spot on. And the thing is that most people just give up too soon. So somebody will do those affirmations for 3, 4, 5 days, and they'll be like, it doesn't work. And then I've spoke with a lot of people that said, I did it for a full 3 weeks, or I did it for a full month, and it still didn't work for me. And I'm like, because it's not enough time. Very few people will 3 weeks or even a month be enough time. I mean, reframing our thoughts after having thought a certain way for 20 plus years, it's going to take a very, very long time. And research shows that we have, people say different things. Different neuroscientists have different predictions on how many thoughts we think on a daily basis, but it could be up to 80,000 thoughts that we think every single day. So just to say 5, 6, 7, even 10 affirmations on a daily basis is not remotely close to enough compared to the rest of our thoughts. So, yeah, we need to just keep doing it over and over and over again. And eventually, one day it will work, but it's just up to you. It's really it's unique to all of us. It's different for all of us when it's going to happen.
I could not agree with you more. And I think this is a really important message for everyone out there to listen to. Just this is make it simple, not complicated. And you'll make big changes in your life. Just add yet to these things that you really want to do in your life, or the things that you've been telling yourself that you can't do. Just put
Mhm,
in and give it some time. Just give yourself time. Don't give up so soon. Be patient,
mhm.
and one day you'll be doing the things that you thought that you couldn't. And I'm here to tell you, I've done that in my own life, even when I did not see the answers of how I could get there. If you just take it one day at a time, start adding yet, be patient, and don't give up. And I think that's what you're saying. And I'm sure you've seen this in all the people that you've worked with. I'm sure you have examples and examples of people that you've helped transform their life by using these mindful techniques. And
Mhm.
mindful, just being aware. And everything we think is not always true.
Mhm. It's so true. And really just by making that one little change in your language, you're not setting these big lofty goals saying I'm going to backpack through 50 countries by next year. You're not even really framing your brain that far to say I'm going to do these things. You're just saying I haven't done it yet. It's so small. Just this small little change in your language could make a very big difference.
So beautiful. I mean, I really am going to implement this today. Really, I'm going to. I
Great.
think it's beautiful. I think it's easy, and I think it's profound. And
Thank
you
you.
know what you're capable of doing unless you try. And what's the worst thing that can happen? It doesn't happen. But what's the
Mhm.
best thing that can happen? It does happen. And 9 out of 10 times, if you don't give up, you accomplish more things than you could ever imagine that you could ever do in your lifetime. And I've seen that with my clients. I've seen it in my own life. And there's times I wrote a book when I was the worst speller, and English was the worst subject for me. In fact, it was one thing that my teachers had to talk to my parents about and things like that. And so, yes, it never say never. If there's a way you want to get something done, you first have to get those limiting beliefs out of the way by just changing those small little mindset changes and never giving up. And then also, and I'm sure you're going to agree with this, Nicole, there's people out there that will help you on your journey. If you
Absolutely.
learn something, you want to do something, you don't know where to start, uh, there's people out there that will help you on this journey. So you
Absolutely.
in meeting your goals, or finding these dreams that you've only told to yourself. Ask people, tell people what you want. And I mean, I'm sure you're living your dream right now. It sounds like your journey's really been a journey of self-discovery, and now you're helping others do the same.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. As soon as I started actually verbally telling people that I want to travel, it's my dream to travel, I couldn't do it alone. I tried. Once I built up enough courage to go by myself, I had so many people asking, "Can I come with you?" that I had to say, "Sure," but I kind of wanted to go by myself. So all of my backpacking trips, I've been with other people, and we had somebody would tell somebody who was living in Vietnam who took us in for a week, and we people in China we stayed with, like we just all of a sudden started getting help from everywhere. So yeah, I could not agree more.
Oh, Nicole, I could talk to you for hours. You're just so you're just so inspiring to me because it's not only that you are teaching people such important things for the rest of their life to have a fulfilling, happy life, regardless of what's gone on around them or where they were born. That you're telling them there's hope here, and you've not only are helping people, but you are showing them through your own example of what you've done in your life, and that's the most powerful way to teach people. So how can people get a hold of you? And what are other resources? I know you have your book, and they find your book on Amazon, and we'll make sure we have the link. And I know you put keynote speaking and
Mhm.
coaching and wellness retreats, right? Do you have
Yes. Well, so I can do workshops. I pair that up with speaking. So I do workshops. Yep.
great
And
connect?
so thank you, Terry. So you can find all of my information at NicoleGonzalezWrites.com. And I'm also on pretty much all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok as Nicole Gonzalez Writes as well. I do have a book for teenagers, the book every teen should read. And I have a podcast, so the Nicole Gonzalez podcast. You can find me on all of those things.
Wonderful. Thank you for shining your light and your wisdom and changing the world one person at a time, starting with yourself. I really, really feel honored to have this conversation with you today. So I look forward to having more in the future.
Me too. Thanks so much for having me on, Terry.
Bye bye.